What's a good word, my nerds? Sarge here. Coming at you today to discuss a problem that I think a lot of modern day MMOs and looter shooters are having, and that is how to handle cosmetic items in-game. Cosmetic and vanity items have become almost as big of a part of modern day games as power items. In fact, depending on the kind of gamer you are, a lot of people would probably argue that cosmetic items are more important to them than power items that actually represent your gear and level in game. From flashy helmets to mounts to gliders and dance moves, cosmetic items garner a lot of attention in most games' cash shops. I too am a fan of collectible items that set my character in-game apart from the other players. There's unquestionably added replay value tied to chasing these types of items. However, in many games, their implementation misses the mark so badly that otherwise solid games can be reduced to nothing more than pointless grind fests. So I want to spend the next few minutes talking about how I think cosmetic items should be implemented and how improper implementation has serious negative effects on MMOs and looter shooters. My gaming experience with gearing a character started in World of Warcraft. I started playing around the time of Burning Crusade. I know, vanilla was the best, anyone who didn't start in vanilla is a scrub, I should be ashamed of myself, blah blah blah. Nevertheless, a major part of what got me hooked on WoW was seeing the other players walking around in their gear and riding their mounts that were far superior in cosmetic appeal to my own. For me, it became the ultimate carrot on the stick. I wanted to be able to make my Night Elf warrior as flashy and as badass looking as possible. I wanted to be the one who other players would walk by and who would have to stop and click inspect to see where I got the gear that I had earned. I don't think I need to go into a lot of detail about how I spent the next year or so running raids and doing other various activities to try to get gear that only the most elite players had earned. We all know how that story ends. Something worth mentioning, however, is that I played WoW off and on through the end of Cataclysm. So with that being said, I was around when transmogrification was introduced into the game. This is where the core of today's discussion stems. For many, transmogrification and other systems like it that allow you to change the appearance of your gear in a game has been a great thing. I've watched numerous reviews on YouTube talking about the replay value that is added by making older gear sets worth earning since they can now be used as cosmetic items. There is no debating that this can be the case depending on what kind of player you are. Making some of the older but still good content worth revisiting is a great thing. The problem is, I don't feel that any developer to date has really nailed the implementation of these kinds of systems. For example, I thought that the first raid in Destiny, the Vault of Glass, was a pretty solid raid after all the bugs and cheats were eliminated. But once the second raid came out, there was no point in running the Vault of Glass anymore, because all the gear was too low level to continue with your progression. Look, I'm not a developer, but I have to believe that they could have found a way to increase the difficulty even higher than the previous hard mode to offer at least a couple current tier drops that players would have been able to use in their continued progression. This would have kept the first and second raids simultaneously relevant. In other words, I'm all for keeping as much old good content relevant as possible, but doing it just for purely cosmetic and vanity incentives seems a little hollow. Since we are on the subject of Destiny and the Vault of Glass, let's use the Vex Mythoclast as an example. If you had earned the Vex Mythoclast without cheesing Atheon, cough cough, you sort of had a badge of honor to carry around that weapon. It meant that you had passed the raid on hard. But if you went back to the Vault of Glass at a later time with a group full of players who all had much higher light levels than needed to run that raid, the meaning of getting the Mythoclast in a drop was much less. And this brings us to the overall point that I'm trying to convey in this commentary. When cosmetic items can be used to completely mask in-game achievements, players start looking around at one another and just assuming that people got all of their gear out of the cash shop or by running old content. That's how I feel when I play Guild Wars 2. I admittedly am not a good Guild Wars 2 player. It's just a game I kind of play when I get bored with the other games. I'm waiting for something else to come out. But I have no idea which pieces of gear are which in Guild Wars 2. So when I see a player walk by me looking really badass, I just assume that he picked up a costume on the cash shop. He may have very well beaten the hardest boss in the entire fucking game, but how would I know the difference? So this is what I mean when I say the implementation of cosmetic items has been very poor. Whether you're talking about the loot boxes in the Division, or the modern day Call of Duty games, or cash shop cosmetics in your classic style MMO games. These items saturate the gear market to the point that players can no longer recognize items that have been earned through accomplishment or items that have been purchased with mommy's credit card. I'm definitely not saying that cosmetic items shouldn't exist at all, but limiting them to a couple of slots and ensuring that top tier items were still recognizable was once a critical part of the equation for successful MMOs and looters. It seems this formula has been abandoned in the name of loot boxes and cash shops. And I understand the publishers want to make money. I'm good with that. But I think if developers used their heads a little bit and kept these items a little bit more limited, they could both have their cake and eat it too. Anyways, guys, I've rambled on quite enough. I think you guys get my point that I believe the use of cosmetic items needs to go back to the previous model of being used sparingly so that gear earned through actual achievements is more recognizable in the community. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch this commentary. Mash the like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Keep fighting the good fight, my nerds. Until next time, Sarge out.